Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.
Hello and welcome to Adventure Bike TV. Now, we're going to start this month's show off with a little bit of feedback from one of our viewers who made the observation that in last month's show I referred to the 660 Yamaha as a little bike, a small bike. Well, okay, so maybe it's not small, but it is small in comparison to a 1200, for example. And the fact that this month's show is starting off with a bike review of a genuinely small bike has absolutely nothing to do with what you said. Anyway, it's time for the bike review.
Our Max Pannier has won many awards, including Ride Magazine Recommended and Adventure Bike TV's Best in Test. Metal Mule, engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.
Over the last 3 and a bit years, there's been one group of adventure riders that we probably haven't given enough attention to at Adventure Bike TV, and that's learner riders. Now, your choices of bike are a little bit limited. I mean, you've got your Derby Terra, you've probably got the Honda Varadero, but if you're a learner rider and you want a bike that's a properly focused adventure bike, your options are a bit limited. But there is a learner legal 125 bike that has been purposely built for adventure on the tarmac, as it is green laning and off-road, and that bike is the Sinnis Terrain. It's pretty quick to get through the specifications for this little machine. With your 125cc supper, you'll be served 11 horsepower, 5-speed gearbox, 14 litres of fuel capacity, which in theory should be good for 300 miles plus range, 150 kilos dry weight, upside down forks. Just watch those linked rear brakes. It's easy to get caught out if you brake the rear hard on a slippery surface. The front will start to go at the same time. And of course, you'll also get all that lovely protection and the all-round hard luggage. And in all honesty, there's a lot of protective bars, even around the hard luggage, which is the first time I've ever seen that. So we need to get something clear right from the start with this bike. It's an 11 horsepower learner legal bike. It's not going to blow you away with this performance. Far from it. I would say the acceleration is similar to sitting on a sit-on lawnmower. But that doesn't matter. You've just got to put the speed, 55 or 60 miles an hour top speed, the acceleration to one side and forget about it. It is what it is. But the bike is a lot of fun to ride as a bike. It looks a part of an adventure bike. And as I've been riding over the last few days, one of the things that's really struck me is, because I haven't been thinking about my speed particularly, obviously, apart from the speed limits, and I haven't been thinking about the acceleration, I've just been enjoying what I've been doing. I've taken a lot more notice of what's around me, and surely when it comes to an adventure bike, that's what's important. share a great deal of its looks and parts with the Honda Ventura 250 from a few years ago, which I always thought was a good looking machine. Certainly the crash bars and the luggage look almost identical, so unsurprisingly, I think this little fella looks good as well. The price is also pretty nice looking. This all comes for a very thrifty £2,400 plus OTR costs. Now, that is not to be sniffed at. I have a little bit of a confession. I'd really not had much to do with the Sinnis bikes, and I didn't know a lot about the brand. So, Sinnis motorcycles have been in business for 12 years, importing their bikes from the factories in China. Aha, I hear you shout. Chinese bikes! What about quality and reliability? We've all heard the stories. Well, suffice to say that the Sinnis bikes come from the same factories that are partners with Yamaha, Suzuki, BMW and Harley. The Terrain itself is made by the BMW and Harley partner. So I guess that is that. The Terrain feels like it will be a reasonable off-road bike. The low height and weight helps keep upright, but in fairness you don't quite get the feeling that you want to stand up and move around the green lanes. Plus the 17-inch cast wheels may hold the Sinnis back a little bit off-road, limiting tire joist rubber that's maybe a bit more oriented towards the tarmac. But having said that, it will go off the tarmac. It will take you pretty much anywhere you want to go. I was working with a colleague a few years ago, and she had her learner licence, ready to ride a 125, and she was desperate to have a bike that would take her on some adventures, mainly around the UK. She wanted to go to Scotland and Wales and explore, and maybe over to the continent. But she was asking me about what would be the best bike to do it on, and I now know this would have been the perfect bike for her. It's comfortable, it's got the luggage, it's got the looks. It would have taken her anywhere she wanted to go. Equally today, we bumped into a chap as we were filming, and he came over because he thought the bike looked really cool, which it does. But he was only interested in something that was small, didn't have to go too fast, but would work perfectly as a commuter bike for him. Something he could potentially even put his crash helmet in the back of, which you can do in the back case on this bike. And in many ways, that sums up this bike. It is a great little 125 learner legal adventure bike, but equally it would make a fantastic commuter bike. As an adventure bike, you would see a lot of what's going on around you, but surely that's the point. So the big question is, of course, will I have one of these in my garage? And frankly, for me, no, which wouldn't surprise many of you. It's not a big bike, and I like a bit of speed. But for my daughter, who's 21, who expresses a great deal of interest in learning to ride, it would be perfect.
All Metal Mule panniers are designed and manufactured in the UK. Metal Mule, engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.
All right, next on the show, we've got one of our other occasional presenters. He's toyed like a toyger. It's Mr. Nathan Millward, talking about his garbage run.
Hello, I'm Nathan Millward, occasional presenter of Adventure Bike TV. Just here today with Tom to talk about Garbage Run. Garbage Run is an idea I had. A year or so ago I wanted to do Land's End to John O'Groats. I've obviously done Sydney, London on a postie bike in New York to Alaska, but you know, times have changed. I'm married now, settled down, got bills to pay. But I still want to get out on a bike, and I still want to do Land's End to John O'Groats. It was a trip I wanted to do back in 2016. And I suppose like a lot of people, I kept putting it off and saying I'm going to do it next weekend or I'm going to do it in a month. And you know, summer came, summer went, and I'd still not done this Land's End to John O'Groats trip. And I'm really frustrated about that. So I was doing an issue of getting into adventure for London Bike Show, just a free magazine I put together. And I thought, all right, I'm going to put it in print. I'm going to set a date, I'm going to set a time, and I just said May 13th, 2007. Anybody who wants to ride from Land's End to John O'Groats, meet you there at 9 o'clock, Saturday morning, and we're going to spend 8 days riding from Land's End to John O'Groats. I'm going to do it on my postie bike, 105cc. cc bike, bring along something similar, suitable or whatever, bring along whatever you want. So we all got there, we all said hello, and then we all set off. This sort of mobile mass of 26 riders, some on, we had quite a few C90s, MXX 125s, we had everything up to a GSX F1250. And I think by putting it up there as an organised event, it just meant there was so much camaraderie and good spirit about it. Everyone helped each other, we had breakdowns and bad weather and everything in between. And it was just, I mean, everyone was strangers, nobody had met at the beginning, but by the end, kind of a nice bond. And a lot of them people have met up since, and they've gone off travelling since, or gone away for a weekend since. So it was a really nice social biking experiment, really. And I guess from that it spawned the idea of running it as a commercial trip, which I hate that fact that you've got to turn it into a commercial venture. I hate being a sellout, but end of the day, I can't keep riding up and down from Land's End to John O'Groats for nothing. So running another one in May, same principle again, people pay a fee, and then which is 245. Why pay that? Because you could easily do it on your own. And I'll even send you a route if anybody's interested, just doing it on their own with the route I take. So send me an email and I'll send you it back in. I think people are just paying to be part of something, to meet people, and then it's nice again after the one in September. People have formed social groups and they're going out riding, on about riding to Norway together with people they met on last garbage run. So, I mean, yeah, it's great. I'm going to do one via Ireland next year, so Land's End to John O'Groats via Ireland. Still 8 days, still back road, but we head into South Wales and catch that ferry to Rose, I can't remember port names. And then up through Ireland, Northern Ireland, and then a ferry from Belfast into sort of southern Scotland and up that way. So going to do that one in early July. And then I've always wanted to take a guided trip across America. So I'm going to do Garbage Run America in August next year. And that's, we're going to take a container of 15 bikes, put your bike on there, boat it into New York. 5 weeks later, there's going to be a boat coming out of LA with your bike on it. You know, the trip's going to be 3.5 weeks, but there's a 5-week window if people want to extend their trip a little bit more. And again, I mean, the rides are semi-guided. I'll give everyone instructions as to where we're heading, where we're going, waypoints along the way. But it's up to you. I don't want, I never expect 25 people to want to ride together. By having a group that size, it allows people to find their own social groups and people they associate with and like riding with it, and it allows people to find their own pace and things like that. So it's kind of giving people a safety net, but not telling them you just got to sit behind me in formation like a regular guided tour. So yeah, I like that, and it also makes people think. They've got to be aware of the person behind them. They've got to be conscious of their own riding and of the group's riding. I'm talking bollocks now. What else was I going to say? Okay, so I mean the American one will just function similar to the regular run, although I don't exactly know which route we're going to take. I'm going to start plotting that before we go, but there's going to be a lot of flexibility in it, and I think that's what you need really. Crossing America, there's obviously so many paths you can take, so many different things you can see, so it's going to be quite loose. We might not necessarily know where we're going to be staying every night, but I think it's got to. I think what I always want to do is retain a sense of adventure. People have got to be allowed to be given the freedom to have their own adventure and do it in the way that they want. The America one, essentially what I'm doing is helping them get the bike in and helping them get the bike out, and giving them someone to ride with across the centre or across, on the route if they want to ride with me. They want to go off and do their own thing. That's cool. We'll be doing some of the TAP, the Trans-America Trail in Colorado and Utah. So if people want to do a bit of trail riding, they can do it through there. Alternatively, if people want to stick to the road, again, there'll be two routes. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a challenge, and I like that. The riding as a group, especially when you're orchestrating it, it brings a challenge into your riding. My main aim, whether it's Land's End, John O'Groats, or across America, is to make sure everyone gets across safely and hopefully has a good time. Safety is my first and foremost concern. If anybody's got a broken bike or whatever, we're going to get that fixed. Like, nobody gets left behind. So yeah, we're just gonna explore America really, see where we end up. Stay in people's barns and fields and motels and national parks. As I say, do some trail riding. We might even dig out some man versus food type location, do some excess eating, and just have some good riding really. I think I've run out of steam when it comes to riding on my own. People say, where are you going to go next? What's next? I'm like, I don't really want to go anywhere next. I've got no ambition to get on a bike on my own, go around the world or Pan America or Africa, because why would I? I'm married, I love my wife, I'm happy here, and there's just no point, there's no motivation. But the motivation and the challenge I get from taking other people is kind of why I do this. It's amazing to see people who are nervous at the beginning, by the end of Land's End Johnny Groats, by the time they got to end at 8th day, they've grown. They're stronger riders, they're stronger people, and they've made good friends. And I think that's kind of it, really, because otherwise I'd just be riding for myself. But taking along other people and encouraging other people. If anybody wants to find out more, find me on Facebook. Obviously, just Nathan Millward on Facebook. Or there is thegarbagerun.com, which is a website set up. I'm not a web developer, so it's a bit clunky, and I don't think it works very well on phones, so maybe use a laptop. So you can book onto the UK trip on that. You can possibly, I think by the time this goes out, I should have the Irish booking live, although I'm only taking 15, so places are going to be limited for that. And the American one, you can find out more about that. Iceland, hopefully I'll have that up and running. Or come and see me at the NEC, where I'll have a stand up at the adventure stage. Also come and pick up a copy of Getting Into Adventure, which again is stories of people doing manageable trips and encouraging other people to get out there and get on a bike, really. I mean, it's as easy as getting on a bike and riding.
Right, well, I've got to say, if I had the time, I would love to go on one of Nathan's garbage runs. They just look like so much fun. Now, it's time for Tom and film school.
Hello and welcome to this month's Film School. Now today I'm sitting down, and I'm sitting down because we need to talk about something very, very important. Far more important than anything else we've covered in any of our other Film School segments. This month we're going to start talking about story. Now this is a vast subject, and there's no way that I'm going to be able to cover it all in the kind of 5-10 minutes we have in this Film School segment. So we're going to touch on a little bit of it today and a little bit of it next month, and we're just going to do bits and bobs as we go along. But first of all, we're going to start at the start and figure out how to actually find a story. Now obviously when you're making feature filmed or planned documentaries, you can do things like build a storyboard or work out what your story is going to be beforehand, or work out if it's a documentary what you're going to be covering. When you're going on a motorcycle trip, well, it's not that easy. But before we get into that, what is a story? There are loads of answers and opinions to this. Some might say, well, a story is something that has a start, a middle and an end, which is your traditional story format. But it actually can be a huge, wide range of things. To me, a story is many things. And of course, you want to have some sort of beginning, some sort of middle, some sort of end. But to me, it's a bit more than that. It's emotion. There needs to be emotion in there, and it doesn't matter where you kind of get that emotion from. And that emotion might be fear, it might be joy, it might be a whole range of things. The key thing is, whatever that emotion is, you need to make sure you can pass it on to your audience. So let's talk about emotion for a second. There is a trap that so many filmmakers fall into, and it's quite simply that just because you remember the emotions at the time when you were filming doesn't mean they necessarily translate well to camera and to an audience. So let me give you an example of when I've made the same kind of mistake. In my first big travel film I made, Scooter to the Sahara, we were travelling through the Atlas Mountains, and I was filming just on a helmet camera at the time. As we went really high up over the highest pass of the Atlas Mountains, It was freezing. It was pouring with rain. I was completely sodden. I was so wet and so cold and so miserable, and I don't think I've ever wanted to be anywhere less than I did there at that time. It was horrid. Now, every time I watch that footage back, I remember how I felt. I remember those emotions. I remember feeling cold. I remember feeling wet and awful. But the audience just sees some helmet camera of some guys riding in the wet. They have no way of knowing how miserable I felt. Now, this is where it comes into telling a story. I hadn't been doing huge amounts of filming before then, so actually I didn't tell the story properly. What I should have done is shown a whole load of shots and done some voiceover and really talked and tried to get that emotion across of how miserable I felt, because it didn't come across on film. And that's what we're talking about. To engage your viewers, you need to have emotions. So when we're looking to find our stories, when we can't do any pre-planning of what's going to be in our story, we just have to go on our adventure and see what happens. When emotions are running high, whether that's good high with happiness or bad high with miserable, cold weather, this is where emotions should start telling you as a filmmaker, this is something interesting, this is a story we need to tell. And at the end, those will become the core moments of your story. And what you'll find is things like your riding footage and other things like that will actually be your linking passages between these moments of emotion. The other thing to do when you're looking for your story, when you're filming, is think to yourself, is this something I would like to watch? And would I like to watch it if someone else made it? It's very easy to watch your own stuff because, again, you feel all those emotions again. It reminds you of the adventure you're on. But if someone else had been on that adventure, would you want to watch your film? That's where you have to think about what you like. Personally, I get bored if I'm watching someone else's helmet cam footage for 15 minutes with a music montage over the top. That's not what I like. Maybe you do. In that case, make that kind of film. But personally, I like a really, really good story. I like some emotion I can sink my teeth into and really kind of feel what the people on the trip are feeling and have that kind of empathy with them and what they're doing on their trip. So those are just a few things to think about when you're trying to find your story, which will happen while you're on your adventure and while you're doing filming. So think about emotions and think, would I want to watch this? It's that simple. Of course, then you get back home and you need to edit things and you need to create a proper timeline story. And that's where things get a bit more complicated. And you have to think of different ways to tell that story. Is there a right way and a wrong way? No, not really. You can keep to the traditional start, middle and end. Most adventure motorcycle trips start with the standard long way round, long way down format, which is let's cover our preparation and getting all our funky kit, because everyone likes showing off kit. Then let's do the main body of our travels. Then at the end, let's have a little recap, think about our favourite moments and cover that. And that is a tried, tested formula that works well and is great. However, you might want to try something a bit different. Why would you want to try something different if it's a tried and tested formula, you say? Well, because people get bored with tried and tested formulas. It's always nice to kind of mix things up and tell things a bit differently. I'm currently working on a film with Bruce Smart, and we've decided to look at it in a very different way to the normal kind of structure and narrative of a travel adventure. Partly this is because of the huge amount of footage there is to get through, and realistically, if you've got over a year's worth of travel footage, if you want to make an hour, hour and a half film, even a feature film length, realistically you're going to struggle to get all of that in within your kind of given time. You're just going to end up skipping over everything, and that's where you start to really lose that emotion. So We're working on a different format that we think will do that a lot better. On the last TV series I did with Graham, the Great Arctic Bike Off, we did things slightly differently. We kept the traditional TV format of a start when we're prepping, middle and end. But what we also did is all of the start bits were introduced from halfway through the trip when we were actually on the ferry already on our adventures. So it gave it a slightly different twist. Nothing breathtakingly new, but when you're working with a TV channel you can't be too over the top and try new things because it panics them. So that's a very, very basic overview about how you should think about finding a story. And what we're going to do over the next few months is next month we're going to be talking about that kind of introduction to your story, how to start your story, how to get people interested. Then we're going to talk about the middle, and then of course we're going to talk about the end. So that's going to be over the next 3 months, we're going to be talking about those different kind of sides. So if you have any questions specific to the storytelling, the start, middle and end, get them into me and we'll answer them in the right kind of place within the narrative of this series of lessons.
Thank you, Tom. Educational, informative and entertaining, as always. Now it's time for a small break.
The Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.
Hi, I'm Tom, the producer of Adventure Bike TV, and I've been asked by Metal Mule to test their panniers to the absolute maximum and film what I've done. Now I had 2 conditions. The first was that they paid me an exorbitant amount of money and they just kind of laughed. So, yeah. The second was that I would not lie. All the tests I do will be filmed, and whether the result is good or bad, I will make sure that they are made public. Now, Metal Mule were 100% behind this idea. They said I could film everything, and even if the test goes wrong and it doesn't work, I can still put it online so everyone gets a completely rounded view of the panniers. And I personally am not contracted in any way to tell a lie, which is a good thing. So I'm going to be doing a whole load of random tests to see if I can destroy these panniers. All of them will be filmed and put online for you to see, good or bad. So the question is, how do we destroy these panniers? Now don't get me wrong, at some point we're going to destroy these panniers. But we probably shouldn't put dynamite in straight away because we're limited to 1 of each type. So how do we destroy them? So Metal Mule are going to let anyone suggest how they think the best way to destroy their panniers would be. So you can go onto their Facebook page or on their Twitter or any other kind of social media things. Let them know how you want their panniers destroyed. We can try shooting them, we can try dropping them, we can try dunking them in the water for 24 hours, anything like that. Let us know what you want to do, let us know what you think would be a great idea, send them in and we shall film it and see how it goes. So yeah, go to the Metal Mule website and start coming up with ways to destroy their products.
The Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.
Hello, welcome back. Now it's time for Under the Visor, and it's the first time we've ever had a writer and illustrator on the show.
Don't ride here.
right here. Explore new horizons with Moto Freight, proud sponsors of Under the Visor.
I'm Duncan Gough. For many years I was an odd job man of all sorts. I'm a jack of all trades. And then I started writing books because I started doing more travelling, and the travelling led me to write about my journeys. That led me to put articles in a magazine, and that led me to publish my first book in 2009, which was about my first 9 years of travels to Spain. And from there I kept on doing with the writing, and I've been writing actually historical novels as well. They're set in 1840 and end up with a half-breed Welsh Apache in Arizona in the 1880s. But that's another story altogether. But so I like the writing, but I was still trying to make a living as a self-employed cabinet maker, stage construction, film work, all sorts of things. Very unfortunately, in 2014, my mother suddenly died, but she left me a small legacy, which has allowed me to stop being a jack of all trades and to concentrate on what I wanted to do, which was actually become a professional writer. So that's what I'm working on now, being a professional writer. I was born in Wimbledon, but I was brought up in Rhodesia. And then I ended up in the UK, and I've worked in Scotland, I lived in Greece, I've worked in Italy, I've worked in Spain. I've done a lot of travelling in lots of different places. But what happened was, in 1980, my parents built a house down near Ronda in Andalusia in Spain. And I went out there for the first time. And that first time when I arrived in Spain, it felt like home. Looking back at it, I think part of it is the smell of dust, the sound of the cicadas, the heat, all took me back to that childhood in what is now Zimbabwe, and very similar sort of environment. And that kind of keyed me into Spain. And so then I really kept on wanting to go back. And from 2000, where I started going just for a week, that was all I could take out off from my work. But each year it just built on itself. And I realized that it's, you know, you can go to Moscow in 5 days if you like, but you're going to be traveling in your own polytunnel. What I found about doing Spain, and doing it even though it was only a few days each year I got a little bit deeper into an understanding of the Spanish people, of their culture, of their society, and my Spanish improved bit by bit to a position where I find I can communicate quite reasonably after the first week. Before that, it may be a bit ropey, but I have my ways of getting around that. Yeah, well, that first book that I published in 2009, each journey was written up as a magazine article. So it's kind of like a short story of the adventures that I might have, whether it was only 3 days exploring in Spain and the rest traveling through France or whatever. So that was the book Backroads of Spain. And that produced interest in Spain, and people asking me all sorts of questions about how do you do it, you know, where do you go, and all that sort of thing, where do you stay. And so once I started having the money from my mum to be able to concentrate, I thought I'm going to do my guidebook, my personal guide, which is from not 17 years of annual bike trips and the periods when I worked in Spain and visited it other times. And so that then is Sketches of Spain, which is my guidebook, but it is a very personal guide. There are places that you just have to get lost to find, and that's what has happened to me over the years. So very kindly, a nice Norwegian compared me to Wainwright, because I do sketch. My journal is doodles and sketches and writing in a book, and I draw my own maps to go with it. So I provide the maps. They're to locate places, really. And I did get a bit carried away that's why it took me 9 months to put this book together, because I got a bit carried away with drawing the maps. But the Norwegian guys did that. So it is about personal experiences, as well as this is a place that I found nice. I don't say start here, go there, do that. It's about finding the best way of exploring the country of Spain that I love so much. in order to try and make this work as an income, and I actually don't have a plan B, unfortunately, because my major pension is worth £700 a year. So, and I've just turned 60, by the way. So there is no plan B, but what I'm planning is to have another 3 books out by Christmas. So that I've got a bookshelf of 6 books. They will mostly be about Spain. There's one little book that I've written which is about travel writing and about the techniques that you can use to make the most out of recording an adventure or a journey. So in April I spent 3 weeks in Andalusia, research, journal, sketchbook. That will be 1 book, mainly about the Serranía de Ronda and the mountain villages. Ronda itself is covered by so many people. Fantastic place, but I'm not covering that. I'm covering the back roads and the interesting out-of-the-way places. Then, because a lot of people say they kind of like my doodles and my sketchbook, I'm going to do a book that's going to be pages from my 17 years of notebooks with translations of my writing, because it's not that readable. And next week, I'm on my way to do Back Roads to Barcelona from Santander and Bilbao, which will be another book that will be completed, which will again be in the same. I'm building my own style and my own brand of writing about travel in a personal way, and also with a way that makes it accessible to as many people as possible to enjoy, in my opinion, the best way of enjoying a country. So my main website is at www.duncan-spanish-travel.com, and I also have a Facebook page which is Duncan Ryn Gough, and so you can sign up, you can subscribe on my Facebook page or with my web page. Subscribers, I don't bombard people, it's just where I will say that there's a new book out, but also when I'm doing shows, if I've got free tickets, I will often offer those to my subscribers first, so that people can get a free ticket into whatever show it happens to be. And those are the real places. It is available on Amazon as well. I sell on Amazon as directly from me. And you can order it through Waterstones or one of the bookshops. Unfortunately, I don't get so much money that way. So I actually quite prefer it if it's through my main website, and then I only lose 3% to PayPal or whatever it is. But those are the places. Or find me at one of the shows that I happen to be going to.
Don't ride here. Ride here. Explore new horizons with Moto Freight. Proud sponsors of Under the Visor. Having taken a look through a couple of his books, I really can recommend them. They are quite unique with those amazing illustrations. Now, Tom has been scouring the interweb for interesting and entertaining travelogues. It's time for the Travel Journal.
Hey, my name is Oliver Solero, and I am occasionally known by my alter ego Broken Tooth. So I understand that there are folk out there who consider me to be a bit of an eccentric. I don't make any apologies for that. As a matter of fact, the only guilt that I really feel in life is the fact that I was born with motocross boots on, which I'm sure was rather uncomfortable for my mother. I guess you could say that my dubious claim to fame is the fact that I love taking motorcycles where they really don't belong. Specifically some of the Arctic regions of North America, the ice roads, the sea ice, and essentially places where really you're not supposed to go with a bike. My attempts to partake of this particular brand of shenanigans has met with varying degrees of success. I like to consider myself something of an adventurer, so I guess it's only logical that Grey County would be a perfect place to put down roots if you happen to bend that way. I suppose I'm something of a paradox in the fact that I love my power sports, but I also love to hug trees, and I love big, wide, dramatic, green, open spaces. I like topography that hits you in the eye and doesn't let it go. I love the fact that you can just flip a coin and decide whether or not today is going to be a day full of zen, peace, and serenity, or is it going to be an adrenaline junkie kind of day. It doesn't take much because it's all just outside your door here. Whether you're a hiker, a biker, a rider, skier, walker, paddler, sledder, tobogganer, rafter, paraglider, fisherman, canoeist, spelunker, or if you just want to swing in a hammock with a book, there's something here for you in Grey County. So it just so happens that I love my water sports / fishing as much as I love my motorcycles. So how do I reconcile that? It's pretty obvious, isn't it? This is my gray, and this is how I color it my way.
Right, well that's it, the show is over. We will be at the NEC Motorcycle Live at the second weekend at the end of November, so if you see us, please come over and say hello. And do tune in next month. We're going to have a very, very special announcement about a brand new TV series.